YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jamie. Today we are going to be talking about my December book reviews. I just finished my last one, actually this morning, because we had a new book release come out, and I will talk about that a little bit later. A lot of these, I must say, I wish they could have turned out better. I don't know what it was this month, but it's like I was a magnet for going towards things that I knew weren't going to be good, or things I thought were going to be really good that turned out really, really bad. And if you guys have not already, please like and subscribe. That would help me out to bring you guys more videos every week. And without further ado, we are going to get started. I went over my December TBR at the beginning of the month, thinking that I was going to stick with it and that I was going to read a whole bunch of books that I was looking forward to doing, and thought I was going to read a whole bunch of books that I was looking forward to getting finished. That is so not what happened. The only books that I finished off of my December TBR was Winter in New York and Jingle Bell Mingle. All the rest of them I just completely ignored. I had started to get into a reading slump, and I know that when I get into a slump, I don't read for possibly 2 to 3 months because I just don't feel it anymore. So I had to rearrange my whole TBR and go towards authors that I wanted to read, that I knew would get me back into the groove of things. I am definitely back into it now after the books I've read this month. I was super excited for some of them, and just some of them were surprises. I haven't read these authors in a long time, and I needed to read them to get out of the slump. So the first one that I read to get me out of this slump is an author that I can heavily rely on. She has got me out of it every single time. I've read 3 of her books. This makes number 4 of hers, and it is Sarah Dessen. I read Just Listen. This is one of the few I have not read yet. This book, I wish that I read this when I was a teenager, and that's how most of her books are. They teach like teenage level lessons, but they are actually very, very important lessons. This one, I'm going to go over a little bit with you guys. So this is about a girl named Annabelle. She is a girl who everyone thinks has everything. She does a modeling career. She has 2 sisters. She lives in a really nice, big glass house, which I thought was a little interesting. It's just it's nice how she describes the house a little bit. But that's what everyone portrays her as, is the girl who has everything. But her life is far from perfect. Her friendship with her ex-best friend, Sophie, ended very, very abruptly and very bitterly. And her older sister is going through an eating disorder. It's weighing down the entire family. So this is something that's been going on. She's having trouble at school. She's having trouble with her family. And she feels isolated, and not only at school but also at home. She retreats to silent acceptance. She just accepts the problems and doesn't think there's anything to change it. Until she meets Owen. He is an intense, music-obsessed, and determined to always tell the truth person. And when I mean obsessed with music, like music we don't even hear of hardly ever. It was kind of nice having all the music stuff included in the story. It was like a mixed media type of thing. But always determined to tell the truth. He is very blunt. And sometimes it's ridiculously funny. Yeah. So with guidance, Annabelle learns to just listen to herself and gains the courage to speak honestly. But will she be able to tell everyone what really happened the night that she and Sophie stopped being friends? So I'm not going to reveal any of that. But going to the lesson of this book, it is something that I have struggled with my whole teenage life, is when big problems happen, you debate whether or not you think it's worth it to tell your family, or just don't tell them at all and you deal with it. This book definitely hit that mark for me, to where I even felt like I needed to do something about this with my life. So the main lesson of the story, Just Listen, is to just tell people what really happened. If they get angry, they get angry, and then it leads to acceptance. If they get upset, they will slowly get over it. their reactions may surprise you. And this is something that I have struggled with my whole life because I was a very quiet person. I kept everything to myself and didn't tell anybody. And I realized later that sometimes their reactions are not what I expected at all. And that has happened very often. So I finally got out of the slump. This is something I feel like every teenager needs to know, is you can't keep things from your parents, especially things this big, because their reactions may surprise you. Where you think they're going to be angry, they may actually be really upset and actually want to help you deal with this. I gave this a 5-star. She has always been, hopefully will continue to be that way. But for those of you who have not read A Sarah Dessen, I would definitely get a hold of her. Her writing's amazing. She's very good at descripting, you know, the scenery, the characters. I fell in love with each and every one of them, especially their backgrounds. There was a little bit of backflash in here. We only had Annabelle's POV. We didn't really have anybody else's. We just had a lot of backflashes to get the parts of the story that needed to happen. Like the whole thing with their sister, that was in the past, but it needed to be explained to their relationship now. I loved it. I definitely love this one. Gave it a 5-star. It was the first one for December. I was very, very happy with this. It's got me a little bit out of my slump. The next one that I finished was A Jingle Bell Jingle. This book was so poorly written. I was cringing in the first 4 pages of this book. I didn't even get to the end of the first chapter. And it was so bad that I thought that I should share it with Nick. And I showed him the exact paragraph that I wanted him to read, and I let him read it, and his reaction was just like, what? That's exactly what he did, was he cringed about as much as I was cringing the whole first 5 pages. So this is definitely either something that I need to read the first book on, or this is something that I just need to skip altogether because it was horrible. It was horribly written, in my opinion. If you guys loved it, please let me know what you loved about it, or if I need to read the first one in the series. So I'm going to be very, very weary. I may read the first book, A Merry Little Meet Cute, but I do not have hopes for this author, nor do I have hope for the rest of the series. But if I get the same reaction, then I'm just going to skip the series altogether. I'm going to skip reading anything by the authors because it's obvious that it may continue. I might try other books that people have loved by them, but I do not have hope for the series, and I may just skip it all together. But I'm very disgusted with this. I gave it a 1-star, and that is the lowest rating that I have given a book this year. So for December, this is my lowest book for the year. I hated it, and I don't hate books very often, so that does not give me hope because I know a lot of people love this series. We're just gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see on that one. The next one that I read was a disappointment. I thought I was gonna love this. This is one of my favorite authors. I read Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood, and I DNF'd it about a little more than halfway through. I gave it a chance. I gave it over 150 pages. I think I stopped around 170, 180. This book I had high expectations for because I loved Love Hypothesis and Love of the Brain, and I thought I was going to love this one because I love chess. I thought this was going to have more chess action, to be honest, instead of just little glimpses here and there. Until we got closer to the end, it started picking up, and that's why I kept reading it. However, the characters in this made me angry. And when I mean made me angry, I mean made me angry. So our main character, Mallory, she used to be a real big chess champion. She started when she was, I think, 13 or 14. And she stopped after her father died. I never really got to the whole thing with her father. I really didn't care because I didn't think it mattered. I think that that should have been in the beginning so we can understand why she was very resentful of it and why she wasn't really attached to it or fighting more with herself about it. And that was one thing that I didn't like about it, was we didn't get a little more background earlier on in the book. The second thing that pissed me off was her character, Mallory, was very, very whiny. And I can handle a little bit whiny, kind of like A Court of Thorns and Roses. I can handle that much. Any more than that, I start getting angry with the characters. This one made me pissed. And she was the only one who made me pissed about it. Instead, Mother and the guy in this, Nolan, they were the only ones that I actually wanted to read. Her sisters pissed me off. The answer with her sisters completely pissed me off. They sounded like such self-absorbed little mini children, and I wouldn't have took that crap from them. That would have been fixed if I was their sister, because the way they were talking to her pissed me off. I can handle a lot of that, but not to the extent that these girls were going. It started getting better. The more the girls understood what was going on, it got a little bit better. But still, you don't treat your family like that to the level that they were doing it. So that made me angry. The other thing that really got me going was kind of just the writing in this one. It just seemed not as good as the first two that I read. I don't know if this is how she's going to write, and frankly, I'm a little scared. Because right now, we're a 2-for-1. And I didn't think that was going to happen. I wish there was more chess love in here. Like, we get very few glimpses of the tournaments. We get very few, which boards made her upset, which ones, she actually worked on. I wish we got more of the moves in there, the techniques, just things like that. I wish we would have got more of. And I would have been more interested, because about halfway through, she started doing chess, and we started getting more tournaments, so that's why I kept reading it. But eventually, I just got tired. I got tired of it, and I didn't care. So this one is about Mallory. She stopped doing it years ago. She's trying to keep her family afloat. She's working full-time. She quit school to help her mom because her mom has chronic arthritis in her feet and her father's gone. So she's the sole provider for the family right now. She's trying to pay the mortgage. She's trying to pay for her sister's stuff. And that's another thing that made me angry about the sisters. They were very, very self-absorbed and pissed me off to no end. So she ends up going to this tournament because her best friend wants her to go with her because she needs a team, and she's -1. So she's like, I need someone on my team here just to, lose a couple of games, and then we'll go do something fun. So she agrees. She's like, okay, cool. We'll just do it, lose, and leave. Well, the one person that she fights is actually one of the top players in the world for a charity, and they're going to be playing them. So it turns out that Mallory has to fight Nolan Sawyer. And she wins. And that's kind of what started the whole thing all over again, was because everyone found out that she beat him, but they wanted to know why. And for the first time ever, Nolan's like not throwing a little hissy fit because he lost. He's actually very confused. So he's very, very confused. He's never lost that before. So at least not to someone like her. And he I guess kind of liked the way that she beat him. It was like, I want to play with her again and see if, this turns out to be a challenge. But overall, I gave this one, I think I gave it a 3 because the chess portion did keep me in it as long as I did not anticipate to read this as much as I did. I stopped like somewhere over here. I Dr. Star for the characters, and then I Dr. Star because there wasn't as much chess as I thought was going to be going on in this. So I was very disappointed with this, and I wish it could have been better for me. But if you guys love it, good for you. Glad for you. This is not for me. The next one that I finished was another disappointment. I was just on a roll. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I was just drawn to books that I think were going to be bad, or what happened here. This one ended up being another favorite author of mine that I was severely disappointed in, and that is One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon. I read the reviews about this before I started reading it, and I was very skeptical already. There were many, many reviews about the type of things that she was talking about in the story, and just the whole premise of this thing. This reads like a literary fiction, when in reality, it's technically supposed to be a thriller. I didn't get any thriller suspense or anything in the first like 10 chapters, I think. I got pretty far into this one too. I think I got to page like 50 or 60 and I stopped. This one is about Jasmine and King William. So they end up moving from another part in a different, I don't know if it's a different state or just a different part of California. But they move to a planned Black utopia of Liberty, California, and they find a community of very like-minded people, you know, a place where their family can be safe because they've been dealing with a lot of, you know, black terrorism and all this other stuff. There's a lot of racism in here that's brought in. That was one of the parts that I didn't understand, was how she brought the racism aspect into this book when I expected it to be like something like The Hate You Give. So Jasmine is struggling to find her place in this. She thinks that, you know, you shouldn't forget where you come from. And I agree with that too, but not to the extent that she was doing. I think it was severely overdone. So she expected to meet fellow liberals and social justice activists, which she is a lawyer for, you know, situations of black violence. That's pretty much what it is. Residents seem more focused on booking spa treatments and ignoring the world's troubles, so they're very ignorant to the world. And I can see that happening with a lot of rich people that just don't have to worry about it. But specifically, a black utopia community, to me, made no sense at all. It didn't. Like, I have never heard of a place like this, and if there is one, let me know. Only friends of the community are perplexed and frustrated by Liberty's outlook. The frustration that turns to dread when their loved ones start embracing the Liberty way of life, and she learns more about Liberty and its founders. She discovers a terrible secret, and one that threatens to destroy her world and her family. So that was something like a premise for a thriller, and that's what I expected. I expected a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of a thriller aspect of this, and instead we just got a whole lot of black utopia and racism and her trying to fight the world, and it kind of got boring. A lot of people complained about the black utopia stuff. I personally didn't care. I expected it, if it started out like that, I told myself maybe it'll be like The Hate You Give. And I loved it. I loved The Hate You Give because that was such a message that I enjoyed. Not that I enjoyed everything that happened in that book. That's not what I'm saying. I love the way that she told the story. That was something that kept me entertained and made me feel for the characters and, you know, feel for everyone who was part of that story. It was horrible. This one, I expected the same thing, and that is not what I got. So this one I left off with a 2 because I stopped so early in it. The only thing I gave it a 2-star for instead of a 1 was because the characters were very well described, and so was the homes and everything else. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the story and the plot itself. So that is where we lie with that. And that is another one that I was disappointed. I don't know what it is. But thank God this next one kind of saved my whole month. That made me start reading a little bit more again. And we go to A Winter in New York by Josie Silver. This is my first Josie Silver book. I have heard a lot about her. I've had this one in particular for 2 years, waiting to read it during Christmas time, and I'm glad I waited. Turned into a 4-star for me. I loved it. For those of you who do not like Josie Silver or like this book, no offense, but shove it. I agreed with a lot of the reviews I read about this one because, you know, they're here, they're holding gelato. And I got so hungry every single time that they were bringing up the gelato and the machines and everything else. Like, I got so hungry during this. I gave it a 4-star. The characters, the plotline, I loved it. So this one in particular, this is about Iris. So she is new to New York City. She's here to restart her life completely. She is originally from, I believe, London. Yes, London. Iris's mother is the only family that she's ever known. So when she passes away, she's left with really no family. She only has 2 friends there. Oh my god. I'm gonna say Bobby, he is my favorite character in this whole thing. Him and his husband. I love them so much. I don't know what it is. I love them so much. But they are her only best friends. Those are the only 2 people that she knows in New York. And her mother has had a recipe for gelato, just a plain vanilla gelato recipe that she has had for years. And apparently she discovers that a picture that she found with someone standing outside of it is actually right there in New York. While she was walking during a festival, she found the place. And she decided to go into it and taste the gelato, and oh my god, it's the gelato that her mother has been making for years. So we come up with a few dilemmas with this because this is a top family secret recipe. No one outside the family should know this recipe, and yet her mother has it. So that opened up a whole bunch of other doors that gets her involved because her mother's not here anymore. So she has to figure this out on her own, and she meets Gio. Gio was one of my favorite characters in this story. I loved this book so much. It kept me on my toes the whole time. I felt like I was reading a suspense, and then I also cried twice. Definitely gave this a 4-star. It was one of my favorites this month. I'm finally glad I read it, and it is going to stay on my shelf because this is one, and this, I don't say this very often, but this is one that I could see myself reading again probably next Christmas or the Christmas after, but I do intend on rereading this. This was that good, in my opinion. I do also want to read more by Josie Silver. I love the way she wrote everything. I love the details we got and how she explained the characters and the plotline. I loved it. So she is definitely going to start being an author that I read her to zero. Yay! The next one that I have was a thriller. This is by an author that I didn't even know she wrote more books on. For those of you who have read the Match trilogy, Ali Condi, she apparently has written a couple of books since then. This one is called The Unwedding by Ali Condi. She's one apparently I need to read to zero. I didn't know she was writing still. So, lesson learned on my part. Keep track of the authors that you used to read. This one, I fell in love with. This is a good suspense thriller. There's some murder. We had a wedding gone bad. This one was definitely a 5-star. Loved it. So this story is about Ellery. She feels like she's off the edge of the world and she's alone. So she had her husband Luke. They were supposed to spend their 20th wedding anniversary at a big luxurious resort out in the middle of nowhere, having a good time. Well, that was until, they fell out of love with each other and they ended up divorcing. Now they agreed that they shouldn't waste the money. She did not want her husband to bring his new girlfriend to the resort to spend it with each other, so she's like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do this solo. So good for you, girl. Go and use up that retreat money. Add to insult to injury, during this trip, there is a wedding scheduled by her stay, literally the next day. She remembered how it felt to be, new and wonderful, and loved everything about becoming a part of a wedding because she did love her husband and she loves her kids. Now she isn't sure of anything except for the love of her kids and the realization that this place is beautiful yet unsettling. So when Ellery discovers the body of the groom floating in the pool in the rain when she is about to go take a swim, she realizes that she is not the only one whose future is no longer guaranteed. So before the police can reach Broken Point, a mudslide takes out the road to the resort and leaving the guests trapped. It also takes out the bridge to possibly anywhere else. The thing is when another guest dies, it is clear that something horrible is happening. Absolutely love this. This is like an amateur sleuthing, discovery about the mystery. I loved the outcome of this. It was definitely a scenario in my brain that I hadn't really figured out yet. I was trying to figure out how the groom died or who, killed him and things like that, or if it was an actual accident. And then the other one was like, well, it's a plain accident. I got turned around so many different times, and then when it finally all came together, I'm like, I did not expect that. I loved her writing style. The amateur sleuthing was perfect. She was being very, very nosy, and I can get behind people like that because I'm nosy too. If something happens like this, I want to know. Definitely want to know. But being the first thriller by Ali Condi instead of a young adult, I did love this. And it is new. This came out in June of this year. For those of you who have not read this yet and like a little bit more suspense but not gory thrillers, I would read this one. This is like a very calmish one because we don't get a lot of the killing stuff until it happens. And then everyone's on it. And then we go back to everything that happens. I loved it. If you guys haven't read it yet, I would 100% read this. This was my other 5-star for the month. Wow. The next one, since I got on a thriller kick, I got this in the mail and I decided that I finally want to read it. I have Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. This book, I am going to say, because a lot of people have been saying the same things, I need to explain something, okay? If you did not love Rock, Paper, Scissors, if you did not like it, you will not like this one. If you love Rock, Paper, Scissors like I did, you're going to love this one. There are a lot of twists and turns in this. We start off with an author and his wife. So Grady Green, he is living the worst day of his life because, you know, he calls his wife Abby to share the exciting news. Hey, I could possibly be a best-selling author. And she's not there. She's on her way home and he's kind of frustrated. So Abby actually slams on the brakes because she sees something in the road ahead. And she decides, I'm going to go check it out. And he's screaming over the phone, no, 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 no. You stay in the car. Well, she does it anyway. Go figure. Don't ever do that, by the way. If there's something in the road, you call somebody and you stay in the car. Because there's a possibility that, you know, you could do what she did and just magically disappear. Her phone's in the car, the keys are in the ignition, and she's just gone. So, a year later, Grady is suffering really, really bad because he lost his wife. So he can't write, he can't do anything, you know, he's lost almost everything except his dog and a few possessions. So his publisher is like, I have a cabin in the woods, go off, see if you can try to write another book because you're entitled to another book. Or you're supposed to be giving me another book because it's a 2-book deal. You need another book. So she sends him over there and the whole time he keeps seeing his wife, someone who looks exactly like his wife. So there leads to many, many questions. There leads to suspenseful moments. I love the dog in this, by the way. I love it when they include animals and they're realistic. But we face so many different things in here. I keep getting twists and turns, and we have 2 POVs. We have Abby's perspective and we have Grady's. Abby's is from like before she disappeared. So Grady's is after, hers is before. The only reason why I gave this a 4, because I did love it. I loved everything about it. However, the reason I gave it a 4 was because I felt like it abruptly ended. I felt like it could have been drawn out a little bit more, or we could have a little bit more in the ending to make it less rushed. I felt like the last 2 chapters, where it summed everything up, was severely rushed. I had to go back and reread it. So I loved it, but it was wrapped up very, very quickly. So that wraps up Alice Feeney. She is one of the few that I have been keeping track of to finally read to 0. I hope to read at least 2 more of her books this year. I want to read His and Hers and Good Bad Girl. Those are the 2 I want to read this year, and I hope I get to them. So we move on to the next one that I read, and this was also a DNF, but I gave it a 3-star. And usually when I DNF, I don't give 3 stars. This one is just not for me. It was good. It was good, but it was not for me. I started reading the Discovery series by Wanda Brunsetter. So this one is Goodbye to Yesterday. This is the first one in the Discovery series. The thing that turned me off for this isn't the writing. The writing is fine. Like, I loved it. The writing was fine. The characters, the descriptions, and everything where they were at was perfectly fine. I am not one for Christian fiction or romance, so I was already kind of weary to read this, but I gave it a try anyway, just to see if the story was amazing. The thing that turned me off from this was the way that the Amish men talk to their females. They are stuck in the old of times of, you know, the wife stays home and does everything and you do what I say. Or they order them around and tell them to do certain things. I could not stand that because that happened more than once during this, And to be honest, the very, very short book. It was only like 130 pages long. I just read the backs of them, and I read the backs of the rest of them, and I pretty much got the gist of the story. I didn't really need to read it to understand what happened and what was going on. This is about Luke and Meredith. They are facing hard times because he lost his job because he got laid off. He had a job at a furniture store in Pennsylvania. There just wasn't an opportunity for him to grow in that. So he is given an opportunity to learn a new trade in a different state. So they debate, not very long, by the way, did not debate this very long. He kind of already made up his mind to go over to Indiana and learn a trade. I think it was to do headstone carving, something like that, something where, you know, the profession won't die, and he thinks that he can do very well where they're at. So he's getting ready to go, and she's dealing with the fact of, you know, do I tell him I'm pregnant because he got enough on his plate right now, or do I just, you know, she's debating what to do. And to be honest, like I said, I didn't mind the storyline. I think I could have really, really enjoyed it had it not been, I hate to say if it had not been Christian romance or Amish romance. Technically, I think that's what this is. It's Amish. It's just not for me. I did try it. For those of you who do like this, it was very, very good. I did enjoy it. It's a 6-book series. I just won't be keeping them just because it's not for me. And I will leave it like that. So that's why I gave it a 3. It wasn't bad. It's just not for me. Moving on, I kind of had another one that I just wanted to read to just get off my shelf. And to be honest, I didn't like it. It's The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. So it's kind of like an original copy. I found it when I was very, very young, when I first started reading classic books and enjoying them. I think I picked this up when we were reading Ernest Hemingway stuff. This one in particular just didn't make any sense to me. First, there's like no chapter markers in this book at all. It's just a run-on story. So that's the first thing that I didn't like about it. I kind of just sucked it up and was starting to read it. There was nothing but dialogue in like the first 20 to 30 pages of this thing. It was just all dialogue. You don't really know what's going on between two people talking all the time. So there was that, and then the story is supposed to be about an old man who, you know, is working with this boy, and they go out and they try to fish, and, you know, he gets caught out there, you know, wanting to catch some fish, because if he doesn't, then he's gonna starve and he's gonna go broke. So it's kind of all I got from this. It was kind of pointless. I don't know if anybody else has read this, but if you have, how did you like this? Because I did not. This is, I think, one of the very few classics that I have not enjoyed. This one was another 5-star that I read this month, and I think it was the last one I read too. I absolutely loved, and I mean loved, this book. It is Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I didn't know that Christina Lauren was 2 different authors just put together in the same name. So for those of you who didn't know that, yeah, this is 2 authors put together their first names and they just created a name. Paradise Problem, this had me hooked from the first page, and that doesn't happen very often. This had me hooked. I read it in 2 sittings, and it's over 300 pages. This story was so good. It's about Anna Green. She thought she was marrying Liam Weston for, you know, family housing at UCLA. She thought she signed divorce papers when the graduation caps were tossed and they went their merry ways. She thought she signed it. Turns out, 3 years later, she is a starving artist living paycheck to paycheck. So she's having a hard time making a living, and then she's also trying to take care of her father at the same time. It's very, very difficult. Liam is a professor and also trying to be a part of what his father was doing, and we're going to get into that. So he may be one of 4 heirs to the Weston Foods grocery chain that is really, really big in California. but he has little interest in working for the corporation his family has built because he feels like everything's all about money, and his family is very spoiled. So he is interested, however, in his $100 million inheritance, but there is just one catch to that. Due to an equated clause in his grandfather's will, Liam can't claim the money until he's been happily married for 5 years. So when Liam thinks he's in the home stretch, pressure mounts to his family to see his mysterious wife, and what better excuse to go meet her? His sister's having a wedding. No choice but to turn to the person he is very, very afraid to introduce to his 1%er parents, his unpolished not-so-wife. But in the presence of his family, Liam fears quickly that the shift, whether the feisty, foul-mouthed, paint-splattered Anna can play the part, to whether the toxic world of wealth will corrupt someone as pure as Anna, he is surprisingly grounded and to support his wife. So Liam has to ask himself the price tag on his flimsy cover story, if it's worth losing the true love that sprouted from a lie. So this is a fake marriage, marriage of convenience type of story. I love this so much. This book, I swear, had me cracking up so much. I laughed multiple times in this because I loved Anna. Anna was my favorite character of the whole thing. She's very foul-mouthed. She doesn't give a crap what anybody says. She flaunts what she's got. She's very free-spirited. This lady's got pink hair. I loved her so much. She made the story for me. We get to meet the family characters. This is happening apparently the wedding is happening on like little islands right outside of Singapore. So their family could afford to do that. Go figure. They have the whole island resort to themselves for this wedding. Very extravagant, very, very classy, and very good for Anna and Liam to get to know each other a little bit better, deal with his family a lot more. She kind of understands more what Liam gone through. She didn't really get to know him back when they were in dorms together. So that's one thing that she's looking for. Love, love, love this. This was a 5-star, definitely, for me. If you guys have not read this yet, this did come out this year. It came out in May. If you guys haven't read this yet, you guys need to read this, guys. I loved it so much. I have not loved a romance like this in a very, very long time. But they are definitely authors that I will be looking into. Another one that I want to read to zero because it was that good. And I really love their writing. I love their descriptions of the characters, the settings, and everything that was happening with the wedding. And just all the scenarios had me on edge, or it made me mad, or made me cry. I cried twice. From suspense, stress. So I loved it. I love situations like this, and it wasn't fake either. This was like a possible situation that could have happened. There was no unrealistic aspects to this, if that makes sense. So the only other book that I read this month, and I literally just finished it this morning, was The Conjurer's Wife came out. We're doing this on New Year's. Yes. The Conjurer's Wife came out, and like I said, it was a short story. It was only about 40 pages. I read it very easily. I read it within like an hour. It was done. Actually, I read it in under an hour. I believed I read it in like 45 minutes. Anyway, The Conjurer's Wife by Sarah Penner. I enjoyed this. I really did. I have not read a short story in a very, very long time. This one kind of, I think, was meant to get you kickstarted on what her new book, The Amalfi Curse, is supposed to be about, because that comes out in April. I think this was like a prequel to that. A very short one, but it was good. It was really, really good. There was like a little short storyline. It was written very, very well. I was very happy with it. I definitely give this one a 4-star. Loved it. So her husband is an illusionist. I can't say that word. Illusionist. And they've been traveling around for a very long time. Well, apparently, they were married. You know, they hadn't had any kids or anything like that. Something happened to where she injured herself, and she got amnesia, so she can't remember anything, really. But they go through, they're traveling around, she's not the same, she doesn't enjoy this as much as she used to apparently. They have this show literally on their anniversary and it's acting like he doesn't care. So that kind of made me angry, but she gets him back, and I'm not gonna say how. So she figures out a few secrets, and that's kind of where we leave it. I don't want to go much more into it, but I do believe that there was aspects in here that tie in with the Amalfi Curse. So I'm kind of glad I read this, because it's going to open it up to a whole different book. And I really, really enjoyed this. I love the writing of this. I love the sorcery aspect. It's kind of like how she was writing Lost Apothecary, and I was so happy to have that feeling back. Which means I am even more looking forward to the Amalfi Curse when it comes out in April. So, if you guys haven't read it, it is free on Kindle Unlimited, so you guys can go check that out if you wish, if you have Kindle Unlimited. I cannot believe that I read 11 books this month. When I started off this month in a reading slump, I have read the most I have read in a long time. But I guess that's what you do when you mood read and you're in a reading slump. So, that is all I have for you guys today. That was ranging anywhere from a 5-star to a 1-star. I had a very disappointing month, but I also had some really, really, really good reads. I was very happy with the Alice Feeney, the Christian Lauren, and the Ali Condi books. Amazing. Really, really good. And I do intend on reading more by them. I have a couple Ali Condi books that I have to read. And Alice Feeney, I'm going to read some of her older ones. We're going to get into that a little bit later. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys haven't read any of these books, or you guys have different opinions on some of the ones I DNF'd, please let me know in the comments. Feel free to talk about it all you want. That is all I have for you guys today. Thank you for joining me and listening to my opinions, because, yeah, they're opinions. I hope you guys had a really, really awesome new year. We are officially in 2025, and I am looking forward to this year. I've done many plans for this, and working on a whole bunch of different other things I didn't get to last year. Love your reason, drink your teas, and I am going to go start reading some more. Bye!